Hey guys, it's hot today, isn't it? Welcome to another Anthology reviews compilation segment, whatever you want to call it. It's sweltering in the UK right now. This is Easter weekend and it is somewhat hot. I'll look forward to it cooling down a bit because I really do not deal with the heat very well, especially in a new build house. But the reviews must go on. It's been a while since I've done one of these segments because game releases have been somewhat lacking in the last month, it has to be said. However, there is more to come. I've got 6 games / expansions to review on this one. There'll be an Underwater Cities detail review coming up very soon. You should already have seen the Galaxy Trucker solo play from the Steam app version. That's already gone up. And after that, I've had some more games arrive in the post recently from Adobe. So I've got the Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle-earth game to review. And there's a few others as well. But I'm going to keep those as a little surprise for now. Unless you follow my Twitter feed, that is, I suppose. Because you'll see pictures of what I've had then. So this Anthology segment, I've got 6 cool things to review. Let's make a start. First up is an expansion for one of my favourite LCGs of all time, and that is Arkham Horror, the LCG, and it is The Circle Undone. Yeah, where's the box? Box is in the bin by now. Come on, guys. Who keeps the boxes of those deluxe expansions? Yeah, that's not going to happen. Nope, The Circle Undone is basically the next deluxe expansion in the range. We've already had the Dunwich Horror, or Dunwich Legacy, I think it was called. We've had Path of Carcosa. That's probably my favourite so far, completed that is. Forgotten Age, that was a really good one as well. And now we're on The Circle Undone, which at this rate, if it carries on at this point, is going to be my favourite one of the lot. Circle Undone is basically, I don't want to give away spoilers, so I'm not going to give away spoilers on the whole plot elements, but let's just say you have some dealings with the Silver Twilight Lodge, which are one of my favourite areas of the Arkham lore. Bear in mind, I'm not an expert on this sort of thing. I really like Hastur and the King in Yellow, which is why the Path of Carcosa really sang to me. But I also like the Silver Twilight Lodge, this kind of cult society that you don't quite know. Are they good, bad? Are they a lesser evil? Are they just completely evil? They're cool. They're very mysterious, and you have more dealings with them. But in this deluxe expansion, just like before, you get a bunch of brand new investigators, a bunch of more monster cards to deal with and player cards, and as well as that, you have 3 scenarios. Hang on, 3? There's usually only 2. Well, there are 2 main scenarios. The gimmick with this one is that you have a prologue. You have a prologue mission, which is kind of like a little mini game that you play before the 2 main missions, and this was talked about a lot in marketing, and it's okay. You basically take control of this random individual, you've got a selection, you go through this little mini story that kind of sets the scene for the 2 scenarios you're about to play, and it's neat. Don't go into it thinking that the prologue's going to be like, a whole new scenario that's going to be a massive game. No, it'll probably take you, 30 to 60 minutes max to play through it, probably even that, and it's more of a kind of time trial. So how long can you survive? The longer you survive, the more you do, the better the more reward, or say the better you may or may not do in the later scenarios to come. It's a nice idea though. It's better than just simply reading a wall of text in the book for ages. This time you actually get to play it out. It's cool. I'm happy if I see it in future expansions. As for the scenarios themselves, very good. I like these 2 scenarios a lot. The first one kind of feels a bit like, ones of old, in the woods and dealing with... It feels very classic Arkham Horror in the way that unfolds and what the plot is. And certainly the story elements are quite varied. In the interludes and at the end of the scenarios, there's quite a lot of branching paths you can take. And that's a good thing. I like stories with branching paths. And the second scenario involves you going to a sort of big party do, and it's like, hang on. All seems okay for the moment, and then all hell breaks loose. And like I say, not going to give away spoilers as to exactly what's going on, but it's really cool, it's mysterious, it has that kind of vibe of the enemy that won't go away sort of thing, which I really like from previous games, because if you can just kill it outright, then it's like, oh, okay, he's just a big enemy. But nah, the one that kind of comes back, or the one that you just can't get rid of, that's always cool, because it's very tense, it's very scary. But nope, basically, there's not a lot more to say about the whole scenario thing. These 2 scenarios are great fun. The prologue is a nice idea. I'd like to see it more in the future. And I think these 2 scenarios will be good fun. If this is what it's like so far, I look forward to digging in to the first 2 Mythos packs, which I've opened. I just haven't had a chance to play them yet, but I'm looking forward to them a lot. And on top of that, I will also say these, if you're a deck building fan and you want some of the most weirdest investigators ever, this is the one to get. I mean, I've been playing with, who have I been playing with? I can't find her actual card, but Diana Stanley I've been playing with. She's one of the new Mystics, and she's really cool. She has weak willpower, but you build it up by sticking cards underneath her, and she has a lot of synergy with cancellation cards. So it's like, sweet, yeah, the encounter deck, you are mine now. It's a really cool one to use. But there's another Mystique in there, one that I think Marie Lambeau, the singer, she likes to control Doom, so one for the advanced piloters, I think, because if you just randomly spam Doom without realizing what you're doing with it, then you'll just quickly unravel your entire scenario. But the other investigators are really cool as well. You've got a rogue businessman who has really rubbish stats, but gets you tons of income each round, and basically is one of those characters where he wants you to have either a bucket load of resources for extra benefit, or just plenty of resources to spend every turn. Really weird. I've yet to get him to work, but he's a cool, neat idea. You've got a survivor, I forget her name, the athlete, who's just super agile, rings around the enemies and even damages them while doing so, and is just super mobile. Really cool. You've got a detective, Joe Diamond, I believe, who has a separate deck of cards, separate to like the main deck, which you draw from and you can do cool things with. And trying to think, who else was in the set? Oh yes, and you've got a guardian who is kind of like a psychologist. She can heal horror from people. Seems more like a multiplayer style investigator, that one, but again, a cool idea. So there really is a lot of good content in this expansion. I mean, if you like the game, you've bought it. Why are you even bothering watching this particular part of the segment? But I will say that in terms of enjoyment so far, if I was just going to rate the deluxe expansions by themselves, this is my favourite one. Path of Carcosa would be a close second, then Forgotten Age, then Dunwich Legacy. But I'm not saying that you should buy them in that particular order. I really still think you should buy them in the order of release because of the cards that come in are still very useful. And of course, you got to get used to how the earlier scenarios played out before you start getting into some more sort of complexy ones that might come later. But still, if you're a fan of the game and you're thinking, well, I've enjoyed them so far, but is Circle Undone going to be more of the same or is it going to be something different? A bit of both, really. It's more of the same, but there are a few new twists and gimmicks in it. But story-wise, at this rate, I'm going to love this cycle. So Circle Undone, big hit for me. Probably, yeah, a good 9. Well, actually, no, probably more so. It's a 9 or a 10. I mean, it's difficult to rate an expansion, but I will say that it's definitely my favourite deluxe of the lot so far. Next up, we're going to tackle a heavy hitter here, and that is the somewhat hyped up Wingspan. Okay, can we just calm down a minute here, please? Okay, Wingspan is a new engine builder from Stonemaier Games. It's themed all around birds. Everything is about birds. You have a board, you have a deck of cards, in the middle, and you're basically building up an engine. You've got a tableau of birds that you will effectively put in front of you that allow you to do different things, like get more cards, like gather food so you can pay for more birds, or lay eggs, which allow you to do various things depending on the effect of the cards, but they're also worth points. As each round plays out, you're hoping to complete a specific objective that everybody is gunning for, and of course, first, second, third, fourth position in that will basically score X amount of points. And after so many rounds, the game ends, and you just total up all the points from various means. There's quite a few ways to get points in the game, but at its core, it's basically an engine builder with cards that are all themed around birds. Now, the game it's good. That's about as much as I can say. It's good. It is a solid, elegant engine builder. I do not understand where this hype and buzz is coming from, though, because this thing is getting hype and buzz like crazy, like most of Stonemaier Games does. And granted, I like some of their games. I don't really care about Between Two Cities. Euphoria is okay, but it's a bit broken. I didn't like Charterstone, but I adore Viticulture, which is currently in my bag downstairs because I played it recently, and I love Scythe. So they are very much a, all the way up here and kind of meh level. So they haven't done anything that I would call bad, although I say I wasn't a fan of Charterstone, but they do solid games. Wingspan is another solid game, but I feel we need to calm down just a teeny weeny little bit about this one because everyone's going mad for it. But at its core, there's nothing really innovative in this game. There's nothing new. This is another engine builder. We're not exactly short on engine builders. I already have Splendor and Majesty for the Realm, two solid engine builders. And I've probably got more so on top of that. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Now, is the whole thing about the birds the main appeal? Certainly, it's a unique theme. We've not seen it done before, and I applaud Stonemaier for trying something new. The birds themselves, all the cards are unique. They have a different bird on each one, and they've got the Latin name and some flavor text. So at least if you want to learn about birds, this is great. I almost felt like getting this from my dad, but he's a bit too new to games. So I don't think he'd be able to cope with the mechanics in it, because I wouldn't call this a gateway game. I'd say this is a next step game. I wouldn't want to put this in front of too many new players, especially not my parents. But he's obsessed with birds, so he would just adore this theme. And even I'm reading it going, okay, cool bird, cool bird. I got something to read, I got something to engage me while I'm waiting for my turn. Which, if you have too many players, leads to a bit of downtime. The game is elegant, it's smooth, but people can overthink this. It's quite easy for, downtime to be an issue with too many players. And again, it's very multiplayer solitaire. There's the occasional card, I mean the occasional card, that might key off an opponent. That's about it. Apart from that, and there's not many of those cards, you might as well not care about the opponents other than the objectives that you can score. And we'll get onto that in a minute. But for the rest of it, you're kind of doing your own thing. So again, I don't really want to max this out with the total number of players. 2 players is fantastic, 3 is great, 4 a bit too long. And it's, like I say, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to say. Everyone's hyped up over this, but I just can't see the hype for it. It's good. I mean, I would happily own this in my collection. I would play it. But it's nothing new. We've seen this before. You put cards down, they trigger effects, certain actions like gather more cards, gather more eggs and get more food, get more powerful the more cards you have on a row, and you can do some shenanigans. It's a cool game. But it's not the best thing since sliced bread, and it is nothing fundamentally new. Granted, 2019 is kind of, shall we say, sucked a bit for board game releases this year, so I guess out of a lot of 2019 releases, this is definitely one of the best that they've had. But one thing that does irk me with this game, the luck of the draw is pretty profound in this one. There's a lot of cards where, you really are hoping to draw the other cards of those particular types. And if you don't, they're not going to key off as well. It doesn't matter how much you abuse that draw card power at the bottom of your board, it's still going to be luck of the draw. And the objectives that I mentioned earlier are another problem I have, because you're gunning for these things. And it could be like, whoever has the most birds that lay nests or whatever gets you this amount of points. Whoever has the most small birds gets you this amount of points. And it'll be stuff like that. That's entirely dependent on card draw. You've got some in the middle that you can pick from, and you've got the deck that you can just draw randomly from. But you could max out your draw power and never see the birds you need. I could draw 5 cards and not see a single small bird, whereas my opponent starts off the game with 1 small bird in his hand and just keeps it. He gets the objective because I can't draw any small birds. And it irks me that the objectives are very luck driven. You can aim for them, you can try to aim for them, but if you don't have the requirements ahead of time, you are hoping to draw into that later. It's not like you can be skillful about it, you're just hoping you draw the cards. And that is a bit of a pain. I kind of wish the objectives weren't there. I would almost house rule them out. They just seem like it's too luck driven and too swingy, those ones. I'd rather just play where you get the points for the various things like eggs and different combos with the bird. So, it's like I say, I like Wingspan. It's good, it plays fine, it plays smoothly, I just don't think it's the next best thing ever. Certainly looks pretty, can't deny that, the aesthetics are gorgeous, the art is lovely, the production quality is great. I'm a bit annoyed with that dice tower that looks like a bird feeder, because, it looks good and it's authentic, but it's got a roof. So, I'm not even a fan of dice towers at the best of time. I like to throw my dice like I'm on a craps table at a casino, but with a dice tower you have to go... you have to sort of just pour them in. And with this bird tower, it's even worse because it's got a roof, which means you have to plop them. You have to sort of go into the side of it and let them roll down. And these are big chunky dice, so it's not like when you put them in, they do a lot. I'd rather just not have the dice tower and just roll the things. I don't know, but it's a nice thing. It's in there and it looks cool. So I like Wingspan. It's a good game. Just calm down a bit. I don't think it's worth all this hype. It is a good, solid, elegant engine builder. Nothing more. Nothing new. Nothing innovative. Apart from the theme, it is different and I applaud them for that. But otherwise, it's an engine builder. Do you like engine builders? Then get this game or at least try it. But don't think that you have to get scalped by people on the internet or on eBay to try and get a copy of this. Be patient. Wait for someone to sell it second hand, or just wait for it to come back in the print and try it and see what you think. It's the best advice I can give. Third on the list, we got Queendomino. Yes, this is, not exactly a brand new game, but I've only just recently acquired it. Now, this is the successor to Kingdomino, and I've played Kingdomino, and, well, it does what it says in the tin, and that's fine. I don't like the game, though. The game is too simple. I mean, it is literally autopilot playing Kingdomino. I get that it's great for new players, great for families and kids, and it does what it says on the tin. Great, fine. If that's what you need, go buy it. But it's not got enough in it for me. So when I heard that this one had a little bit more meat to it, but still used those nice colourful aesthetics and the dominoes and that, and I like the whole laying out tile laying games I do really like, I thought, let's grab this one. I got it on a recent sale. Green Knight Games were shutting down their website and was selling everything at half price, so I bought like a ton of stuff on their website, and this was included. I thought for half price, I'll give this one a try. And it's done by Bruno Cafala, Blue Orange Games. That's already good pedigree right there, both publisher and designer. It's very colourful as well. And yeah, it is basically Kingdomino with extra bits. That's kind of the best way to put it. Now, we're not talking a lot of extra bits here. You're still laying out the dominoes, and you're still, trying to collect, as big a territory as you can. So the more squares you have in the desert territory all connected will score you more points based on how many crowns you have in it as well. So that's all still the same. The extra bit of meat is mainly that you can collect knights to tax the areas for more money. The money can be used to buy buildings, which can get you more points or a couple of basic special abilities, and certain towers might appear on those buildings, which enable you to get the queen, who's a little counter that basically makes things cheaper for you and counts as a crown herself. Apart from that, there's not really much else in it compared to Kingdomino. There's a little dragon piece that you can bribe to kill buildings, but it's kind of an optional action that's kind of a bit useless, really. I was the only one in most games that ever used it, and I never found it to be that effective. The idea is that you would basically use it to burn a building that you think someone else is going to get. Rarely does anyone really care about that. Most people in games are out for their own agenda, not to hate draft, not to just wail on someone else, so it's not an optional action that really gets used. Taxing is definitely useful though, because you tax an area, you get the money, and like I say, you can get a lot of money if you get the right buildings to go with it. And of course, buying a building in general is great when you get the territories for it, because they can give you a lot of points if you're really good with them, and they are a territory unto themselves. And it's just a nice little extra bit of meat to the game. But otherwise, it is very much like Kingdomino. Here's your row of dominoes. Where do you want to put your piece next to? That's the domino you take. Which order or which domino you placed it next to in the ranking determines the turn order for next round. And it's a very simple tactical decision to make. I want that domino there because it's got good stuff on it. Problem is, that means I'm going last next round, which means I'm going to be choosing last. Oh dear. Well, maybe I'll go first, and maybe I'll take that one at the top. It's too desert, no crowns. Not that useful, but it will upgrade my desert, and I'll go first next round. So that balance between how good a domino do you want and when do you want to go first, very important. In terms of path to victory, there's a few. I mean, you've got some buildings that might open up other ones, like get a lot of knights, get a lot of towers. But really, the crux of where you're getting all your points from is the territories. Scoring those territories and the crowns within them. So you really are still aiming to get the biggest territory you possibly can with a ton of crowns in it. That's kind of the best way you're going to win. Do not do what I did in my first game and rely too much on the building bonuses for points to win you the game. It's not enough. Trust me on this. But, At the end of the day, this is not meant to be a heavy strategic game. It's meant to be a simple family level game that quotes 25 minutes, absolute lie, but, well, 2 players, maybe. I've only played it with 3 and 4, but you could probably do this in 25 minutes with 2 players if you know what you're doing. You will not do this in 25 minutes with 4 players in... yeah, right. It's like lies, as always, but I'd say this is more kind of 15 minutes per player game. A 4-player game can easily set you back 45 minutes to an hour. 15 minutes per player is a decent estimate to go for a 4-player game, or just like a game in general. So half an hour, 3/4 an hour to an hour, that will work just fine. But production quality is good. I wish they gave you, some better looking money, I guess. And the knights are crazy small. I mean, they are these tiny little black wooden pieces. So on a black table, good luck trying to find them. And secondly, they're just so small. Could they have not just been a little bit bigger? They didn't need to be so minute. That's a bit of a minor nitpick. But otherwise, dominoes look cool. It's very colourful. It's a simple family game. Probably about a 7 for me. This one I'll hang on to for now, see how it goes over time. But certainly, I would much rather play this one than Queendomino. Okay, before we get on to the main events, which are 2 Portal expansions, we're going to talk about one more game I bought on that Green Knight sale, which was Thunder Alley. Thunder Alley is a racing game by GMT Games, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, Luke, GMT? Really? Yeah, granted, GMT aren't exactly my favourite publisher in the world. They tend to do the big war games, those 2-player war games, or the 3-player ones like Churchill and Liberty or Death, is that one of theirs? Twilight Struggle, insert random bit from history, X 1846, the Liberty of whatever. They do all those games, which frankly, I couldn't care less about. I'm not a historical buff. I'm not a fan of history. I gave up history the first chance I got at GCSE. I'm more of a geography person. I want to go see the world and experience cultures and see lots of the best looking scenery ever. I don't, I'm kind of the sort of person that will go to Italy, look at the Colosseum and go, that's a cool looking building and it's cool that it survived the test of time. But I couldn't care less about when it was built, what happened in it. I don't need to know the life story of the architect who built it. I just want to know it looks cool and it's cool cultural. That's about my limit. But Thunder Alley, a racing game. I do like racing games. I got Downforce, Snowtails and all that. Racing games are a genre I like. But I was a bit hesitant about this one at first because I thought, is GMT gonna suck out the theme and not make it, make it too complex, too fiddly to do? And will it look good? Because GMT is not really known for their production quality and or aesthetics really. But I thought I would give this a try. Again, it was half price. I thought I'd give it a shot. There's more good to it than bad, but the bad's pretty big. Good-wise, this really is actually pretty good theme-wise. Thunder Alley is a NASCAR racing game. You have a team of anywhere from something like 3 to 5 cars, depending on the number of players, and players can go from 2 to 7, again, more on that later, but you effectively have your team of cars and you're racing them around the circuit NASCAR style. So imagine things like Cars, the Disney films, and was Days of Thunder in NASCAR? I can't remember, but, as a movie I've not watched, I need to add that to my list. But basically, where you're going really, really fast in a straight line, just going, but everybody's kind of neck and neck, trying to edge forward, use slipstream. It's a cool spectacle. But with this one, you basically have your team, you're racing them around, you're playing cards to do various maneuvers and get speed, you're deciding when to go into the pits because your car is wearing as time goes on, and if it wears too much, then it could lose its speed, or event cards could say it blows up or does something even worse. And then basically carry on until the race finishes, and then you add up the points based on all the positions of your cars. So just because one did really well doesn't necessarily mean you'll win, because the rest of your cars might have done rubbish. Of course, if several of yours came in the top quarter, you've pretty much won the game, because they only literally have 1 point difference between the various positions in the race. It's a little bit tight. I would have thought they should have expanded it maybe, but I don't know, that's their scoring system. There have been some close games, but there's also been yeah, you've won. We already know this, before the race is even finished. You can get a little bit of a leader problem there. But the theme-wise is really cool. You are definitely doing NASCAR racing, and you can tell they've put a lot of effort into how the race mechanics work. How these cars interact with each other on the circuit. What happens when you get problems with blown engines and that. Even so much that you go into the pits at any point, but then there's also restarts. So the race might restart where you're like, I'm miles ahead, oh, we got to restart, and then suddenly everybody's all clumped up together and then they set off again. They've really got the theme down pretty well. The cards themselves are cool. You have only so many of them around. You have to play one on each of your cars, and you're sort of thinking that's high speed, but it's solo movement. But is that a bit of a waste right now? That's low speed, but it's draft movement. So maybe if I move this entire lineup, and that's kind of what happens a lot of the time. You're moving entire sections of cars along. If I move it up, then maybe someone else will move it for me, and I'll get some free movement. A bit like in Flamme Rouge, where you're using the slipstream with the rider in front of you. Similar, except you're trying to be in a conga line with various cars, because if one moves, they all may move, depending on the type of movement. The event cards can be a little bit swingy, but they're authentic as well. So you have ones that your engine might blow, or there might be a blowout, a pile up. Somebody might just get a little bit of wear token. They might restart the race. Like I said, there might be like a crowd cheering moment, and there's a lot of event cards. You're probably only going to get 10 of them max in a game, so there's quite a lot of variety and replay value in those, even if there isn't as much replay value in the cards you're playing tactically, because you'll see the same sort of stuff come up every now and again. So all in all, in terms of the theme and general gameplay, it's high marks. This is really cool. You've got a selection of maps in here. This box is pretty heavy because the boards are super thick. I don't think I've seen boards thicker than this lot, but to be honest, with the NASCAR racing, the track isn't that important. It's like, you've got different tracks here, and they're obviously famous tracks around the US or something, but in Flamme Rouge, you have hills, you have hazards, you have different things that can get in your way. Snowtails, you have the hazards, you have the trees, you have the bends and that, and it's important when you have those. In Downforce, the expansion map added figure of eights and dangerous territory. So all those expansion maps had a purpose. The extra maps in here serve little to no purpose other than defining how many laps you should have in a race. Because at the end of the day, corners don't really matter. You're just going in straight lines mainly, and there's no hazards. So what difference does it make if my track goes like this or goes like this? It makes no difference apart from occasionally lanes change numbers. That's about it. Why do I need this many maps? I mean, okay, variety is a good thing, but still, was it completely necessary? However, there are some other issues with this game. Aesthetically, it's not exactly a crowd pleaser, is it? The boards are cool. You got little Easter eggs everywhere, and it looks like a NASCAR racetrack. Cool. The cards are pretty basic. Nothing special on the cards. They kind of just do what they need to do graphic design-wise, but there's no real funky artwork or anything. Most of the stuff you're using are chits, and that's something I want to see tons of in games, but again, you've got chits here and chits there and chits everywhere, spilling out of every face orifice, I don't know. And the rulebook, hit and miss. I understood most of the game, but there was a lot of referencing back and forth to it. And I hate these rulebooks, like GMT uses, where it's numbered, where it's kind of like, right, now section 6.04, 6.05, 6.06, where basically it's all numbered so that, yes, an index can find the number fine, but then they're not necessarily listed out in a logical sequence. And it just looks messy, it looks text heavy, and like I say, this is one of the better rulebooks I've seen from GMT. I understood the game, but referencing it was a bit of a chore. And certainly there are some aspects to this, particularly with the movement rules, and let's face it, you have to know how the movement rules work, otherwise you cannot play this game properly, where it was a bit fiddly. I'm kind of going, how's this work again? So if that moves because it's next to a car and it's solo movement, you can move fine. But if it's draft, you can move once laterally, but then if you displace laterally, it bumps them to the side. There's a lot of fiddliness to the rules, and so the ease of play is somewhat on a high level here. You have to be a gamer, really, to get into this game. But, that aside, if it was just those, I could survive with those nitpicks, particularly once you've got to know the game. Here's the big anvil here that's dropping on my head. The time length. Snowtails, Flamme Rouge, Downforce. What do they all have in common? They're quick race games. They're short race games. Each one of those three can be done in an hour. No way. What does it say on the box here? Okay, medium complexity level. Players 2 to 7. Playing time 60 to 90 minutes.
Yeah, in your bra.
2 players, 3 players, maybe. In fact, 2 or 3 players, you could probably do this in 60 to 90 minutes. So, and that would be 60 minutes for the 2-player game, 90 minutes for the 3-player game, if you know what you're doing and don't have to teach the game or reference the rules all the time. You could possibly do it, and even then, you're probably restricted to 2 laps. Because I did a 2-lap game of this. It was meant to be a 3-lap race, but we shortened it to 2, and it was 4 of us, and it took over 2 hours. Easily. Yeah. That's a long time for a race game, and granted we had to reference the rules a bit, so I thought, okay, let's see how future games do when I know the rules better. Bear in mind I still have to teach in every game. None of these games were played where everybody knew what they were doing. But it was 90 minutes for, I think, a 2 to 3 player game, and then it's like 2 hours plus. I mean, I played a 5-player game of this, and oh my god, was I bored. This was too long. I mean, it goes from 2 to 7. There's no way you could... How could you possibly do a 5, 6 or 7-player game of this in 90 minutes? It is not possible. I do not believe it can be done, and if you think it can be done, you have got to show me a time-lapse video of this, or I will not believe you. Fact. My god. And that is a problem, because I was looking forward to a game that could house this many players and do a NASCAR race. But the problem is its game length is too long for a race game. It's GMT overcomplicating it again and overextending it. Just because all your other war games take 5 hours to play, you know, and they're stupidly complex and dry like Churchill and all the rest of it. But that does not mean I want racing games to be the same way. I mean, you've got another one called Grand Prix out. To be fair, F1's not my favourite style of racing, so I probably wouldn't play that anyway. But if that is anywhere near as complex and long as this, I don't want to go near it. It's a shame because I like a lot of stuff about this. The card play is great. The theme is great. NASCAR racing is fun. It's got a lot going for it. But my god, I've got to keep it at 2 to 3 players all the time, 4 at the absolute max, and that's if I restrict it to 1, maybe 2 laps max on a short track. And I have to be comfortable with teaching the rules, and other people have to be comfortable with the rules. This is not for new gamers. Not gateway level in the slightest, not even next step. This is definitely a gamer complexity level game. But it's so long with a lot of players. And I can play Downforce in an hour with 6. I can play Flamme Rouge with the expansion in an hour with 6. I can play Snowtails with 5 in an hour with 5. Did I say 6? Oh, whatever. It's 5 max for Snowtails. This just takes a long, long time. And if that's what you want, if you want a long, drawn-out race, then fine. But I wanted something a little bit quicker and a little bit more accessible. So I don't know what to do with this. I like it, but that is a big negative for me. I'd still give this about a 7. I still think theme-wise and gameplay-wise it's pretty solid. But yeah, I don't want to play it for that long. The downtime between your turn could be obscene. Yes, they might move your cars, but that adds to the AP nature of the game, because you might have a situation where, you know, the board state has changed so dramatically between your and someone else's turn that you have no way to strategize. You have to tactically react to how the race is going, and that's cool. I like that. But then it means people are APing like crazy because you can't think about your turn until it is your turn. So downtime is an issue. Game length is an issue. There's no simultaneous play. It pains me because I want to love this game, and I thought I was at first. And then the time and the clock just went going round and round, and I thought, oh no, it's another one of these, isn't it? And yeah, it's a 7. I still like it, but whether I'm going to keep it, it may just never hit the table compared to my racing game. So, bit of a disappointment, really. I think it's got a lot of good stuff for it, but that big negative is such a big negative, it could draw this out of the collection. Thunder Alley. Okay, and now for the main event, let's talk about Portal Games. Yes, you can almost say this was sponsored by Portal in a sense. Yes, Portal Games have come out with 2 expansions to their games, although one of them I think is still yet to be released officially, other than pre-orders. But you have two of their biggest selling games have got expansions. Woohoo! I like expansions. So first up, we have the expansion to The Great Detective. Detective is my favorite deduction game, bar none. I mean, well, Deception Murder in Hong Kong, if you call it a deduction game, could eclipse this, I don't know. But in terms of a pure deduction game, not social, pure, this is my highlight. Love the theming in this game. It's stupidly heavy. There's a lot of text to read. You're really going to burst your brain this. I mean, you have got to be good at this sort of thing in order to do well. And I will say, I have failed cases more than I have succeeded at them. I am not very good at this game, particularly as I play it solo. When I've played it in groups, I've generally done better. So clearly, it's not me doing well, it's the group doing well. But, my God, you want to feel like an episode of CSI, you played this game. So what's new? Well, Detective, I've kept the box purely for this, and it's empty. It's LA Crimes. LA Crimes, the new expansion for this. Basically, what Detective had is that it came with a 5-episode campaign and a 1-episode sort of pre-order special episode, which I found quite enjoyable, actually. It was a good one. I like more of those, please, those single cases. But basically, it was a long campaign that you did. You spent about 3 hours or so doing a case. You were figuring out clues, using the internet to find out about stuff on Wikipedia. Typing stuff into a database, matching signatures to evidence, and reading through the plots, deciding whether you want to investigate this, go talk to this person. Oh, theme-wise, it is just oozing out of every orifice. Ugh, lovely thought. But it's just such a cool game. But not for everybody. It's heavy. If you want a simpler deduction game, go for something like Chronicles of Crime, for example, which is still not exactly a cakewalk, but, it's kind of tomato, do you want the heavy one? Go for Detective. Do you want the lighter one? Go for Chronicles of Crime. I own both. They're both great games. But this one is a 3-episode campaign, and that's pretty much it. It's 3 episodes, it's another campaign, it's more stuff for Detective. So if you like Detective, you're already going to get this one. But if you weren't a fan of Detective, this isn't exactly going to sway you back. So you have to like Detective before you want to even touch this one. However, my God, did I love this. I mean, I have not played all 3 scenarios in this, I will stress. I've only played 2. And, I've played the first 2 of 3. So I haven't played the third one, but I can already tell just from the setup, because it's set up ready to go, that it's certainly different. It's different to what's been done before, and I love it. I think I'm going to enjoy it. But, wow. The idea with this is that this is set in the 80s. This is LA 80s. So basically, do what I did. Play this game, solo in a group, and put the soundtrack to Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, or any... Was Die Hard in the 80s? I can't remember. But basically, any 80s cop show that you can think of, put the soundtrack on and play this. Because if you thought the theme was strong in Detective, it is liquefyingly gorgeous in this one. Because... maybe it's just because I was born in the 80s and perhaps I just love the 80s as a decade. It is definitely my favourite decade. And, for music, for movies, that kind of thing. And everything in this, the photographs on the cards, particularly these things, in fact, it's set up there, but particularly if you pre-ordered it, you've got like the mug shots and that. They look exactly like a Polaroid from the 80s. All the, photographs, which are real photographs, I think, look exactly like an 80s Polaroid. It's so cool. But the plots in this is really good. I mean, Detective, I felt, was a good plot, but my God, was it a complicated plot. I mean, you had to be a right genius to work out a lot of the stuff in that. This one, you still have to be good at this game. I mean, you can mess it up. I failed the first case because I thought I was doing well and then realised, oh yeah, maybe I should have gone to her house first. It's like, whoops. I realised I was doing things wrong and going off on tangents again, like I seem to do a lot in this game. But when I did the replay, I sort of twigged, oh yeah, hang on a minute, yeah, come on, think about this logically, you can do this. And it's certainly a bit more accessible than Detective is in terms of difficulty. Not to say it's easy, my God, it's not easy, but you feel like you stood a better chance of doing well in it. And then I managed to succeed the second case, so it's like, right, I'm learning from my mistakes here, so maybe I can do well in the third case. But, it's just, like I say, what more do you really need to know? It's 3 scenarios, and that in itself is a good thing, because 5 scenarios was always a bit tricky for a lot of players, because you imagine it, 3 hours a case, 15 hours you need to find. So you're going to need 5 different sessions with the same group, big, like 3 hours, you're going to need a big event of this. 5 campaigns, 5 things in a campaign was a little bit hard to get through, and this was a common criticism of the game. And when I went to Portal Con in January, Big Nasty invited me up there, you know, I heard him talk about like feedback from things like Detective and that, and this was one of the feedbacks they got, that 5 episodes was too long, hence they're doing more of these, and they're going to keep them at 3 episodes each. Great, they're listening to the feedback, and I approve. I think 3 episodes is good. You get a new plot, it's not just 1 episode, but it's not so long that you get tired of it as you go through. Although, I would like to see more of those single episodes, you know, like the Case 6 from the pre-order in the first game. They were really cool too. Nice self-contained episodes. So a few of those, and some 3 episode campaigns, and this is going to keep me going for life. But, oh my god, I mean, I've got songs on my Spotify playlist now that I didn't have before, because I was listening to them during this, and I forgot how addictive Axel F was as a song, you know, to play this. But yeah, if you have a nostalgic connection to the 80s, particularly those cop movies of old, you are going to get such a thematic connection to this expansion. It is unreal. And some of the stuff that came up in the scenarios felt like story elements you would pick directly from an episode. It didn't just feel like, oh, you talk to this person, here's some exposition, go do this. There were certain times where it's like, oh, hang on, this is interesting, oh, I'll read on, and it's almost like I'm watching the episode, and it's like a twist, and it's like, whoa, and you do get some shock surprises at times. Really enjoyed this. It's absolutely solid. I mean, I cannot wait to dig into Scenario 3, but just from the first 2 scenarios already, they were really solid. I can't imagine the third one being bad. You know, so definitely, if you're a fan of Detective, get this expansion. And finally, again from Portal Games, we are looking at the expansion for Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe is a... Oop, that's going to fall down, yep. Robinson Crusoe is a fantastic co-op game. You know, a stupidly hard co-op game, but a fantastic one nonetheless. And sorry about the light there. Yeah, I can see that's causing problems. You know, and it's a great co-op, but we haven't seen much content for it other than the occasional promo scenario. So they've now answered with Mystery Tales. This now gives you another scenario for the base game, another scenario which can only be attempted in something called Horror Mode, we'll get onto that later, and a 5-episode campaign. Granted, I'm starting to get a little bit tired that everything has to be a campaign these days, but again, it's more content for this, and it's like, for a game as thematically rich as Robinson Crusoe, a campaign kind of suits. But I had some concerns. Firstly, how good would the story be? Secondly, how would you fit the story to the Robinson Crusoe mechanics, which is all about survival? You couldn't just have the same thing done 5 times in a row, because that would be a little bit repetitive. And thirdly, how hard would this campaign be? Because Robinson Crusoe is already mind-blowingly difficult. You know, it is literally punching you in the face the second you open the box.
Just give us the head, you son of a...
So I thought, is this going to be too hard as well? Now, Horror Mode is basically a way of upping the difficulty, as if you really needed to do that, you know, to the original scenarios. There's a scenario in here called In the Belly of the Beast, which has you sort of hunting down monsters and that, which is based on Horror Mode, but you can apply Horror Mode to all the base scenarios. So now you have a way to replay all of those scenarios you've had from the Castaway one, all the way to the King Kong and Poachers one, I think there is. All of them can be done in Horror Mode. It basically just takes the new rules you get in this box and applies them to the old scenario to make it a little bit harder and maybe just add a bit more theme to it. Again, did we really need much more theme? You know, certainly where it says in here, you know, oh, you can make the difficulty easier or harder by doing these things. Yeah, make it easier. Please make it easier. You know, if there is anybody out there who is daring to play this with Horror Mode lives up to its name. Remember Hell Mode from Ghost Stories? This feels like Hell Mode for Robinson Crusoe, using that addition. So where it says, would you like to make the game harder? What kind of sadist do you have to be? Sorry, what kind of masochist do you have to be to want to do that to yourself? No, no, no. Use everything in the book to make the game easier for you, please. It's hard. But the main event is the campaign itself, Lost City of Z, which plays out pretty much as I remember from the movie, maybe with some differences. But, you are searching for a lost comrade. You turn up on the island and you're unpacking your cargo, and it's got elements of the original survival game, but then you start encountering weird stuff on there. And we're not talking Cthulhu weirdness, not entirely, but, we're talking, and like I say, I'm not going to spoil loads of the plot here, but, you find weird stuff on there, and it messes with your mind, and, you still have to survive, you still have to find food and shelter to an extent. Certainly the elements of surviving the rain and the snow are kind of gone. Like, for a lot of this, you pretty much just need a shelter at night, and that's about it. Palisade, who cares? And roof, who cares? That's kind of a little bit weird that bit really doesn't need to function much in this, because you've just taken out two big elements from the original game, but they were also the hardest elements. But here you have to still worry about feeding yourself, you still need to meet objectives. You only have 6 rounds per scenario, so the scenarios are actually pretty quick. Maybe a little bit too quick, particularly in solo. You don't have a lot of time to do these things. Maybe the scenarios could have been a little bit longer, because you are very time constrained, and this game, well, it likes to kick you in the teeth as often as it can. You have a specific event deck for each scenario, so it's cool that it's thematically tied. But none of these cards are good for you. These cards all hurt a lot. On top of what everything else hurts, just rolling the dice and getting wounds and losing sanity and going insane and all that lot. It's hard. Very hard. And depending on what players you're playing with and what characters you use, because it is quite cool that you get to have a character with a unique ability this time round. You only had 4, I think, in the base game. Now you've got all these different people you can play. And the ones that you don't use are NPCs, and you can use their somewhat variations on their abilities for your own game. I like that. It's cool, adds for a lot of replay value, and you can use them in horror mode as well. But some are definitely better than others. I found that the one I picked for solo mode was a kind of rubbish. The antique dealer, really wasn't a fan of her. But, the NPCs made up for that. But yeah, this is hard. You are time constrained, and I feel that in solo mode, you do struggle against certain scenarios with just your counter and the dog and the equivalent of Friday, the local guide. There's something to be said about having more players able to do lots of actions. Doing it by yourself does make some scenarios pretty difficult, particularly the first 2. When I played through the whole campaign, I did it solo, and the first 2 scenarios just felt a little bit unfairly difficult. But then, as I got stuff in the 3rd scenario, things got easier, and then I was able to get through the 4th and the 5th one. It was still a challenge, but I felt like I had more stuff to work with, because your stuff saves at the end of each scenario. It doesn't reset. So if you found cool items or invented stuff during a time, you still have them, which is all cool. It leads to a series of progression. But, scenarios themselves play differently. There is definitely a difference between scenario 2 and scenario 4, even though you still have to do the same sort of stuff like gather and explore and invent. But there's only so much in the way of difference. The story is not going to blow you away to an extent. It's fine, it does what it says on the tin, really. But it's kind of a story that you've seen before, you've heard it before, it's nothing particularly new, you're not going to get oh my god, plot twists or anything like that. You're just going to get a reasonable story that plays through as you play a variation on Robinson Crusoe. And that's kind of the way you need to go into this. Don't expect a Pandemic Legacy style of campaign here for Robinson Crusoe. This is basically a bunch of extra scenarios in a box, some of which are linked together to form a campaign, which again play very differently to the normal game of Robinson Crusoe. So it's more content, it's more for you to go through, but I don't know how many times you're going to play through the campaign. You've played it through once, you might play through it again, but I can't see you wanting to play through it over and over again, particularly as you already know what the plot is, and you'll have seen the majority of the cards as well. So you might get 1 or 2 plays out of the campaign and then you're kind of done. What the main selling point of this is obviously horror mode, and the extra scenario where you're gathering up convicts for the base game. Extra scenario is great, another scenario with horror mode is great, and obviously now if you thought, well, I'm an expert at this, if so, how are you an expert at this game? But if you thought you were done and dusted with the base scenarios, now you can add horror mode to them and they chop and change things. Now you have sanity, you have, again, I don't want to spoil things, but you have all those elements from the campaign in the base set scenarios, and they will change them up pretty dramatically, I can tell you that now. Ease of play is pretty straightforward, it adds more rules, yes, but it's variations on existing rules. So if you already knew how the original rule worked, you should be fine to get the new rule. So I didn't have a problem learning this too much. There was a bit of rules referencing, but then there always is for Robinson Crusoe. It's a hard game to learn. It's an insane game to master. But I probably was expecting a bit more from the campaign than I got, it must be said. But that's not to say I thought it was bad. It was just maybe not quite as mind-blowing as I thought it was. I was kind of expecting something a little bit more open-ended. But it's quite linear in how it progresses. You're going through the motions, but you're enjoying the Robinson Crusoe mechanics as you do so, which is all well and good. And the new stuff does throw a nice twist on the game. So all in all, this is probably about a 6 or a 7 for me. It's decent. I still think it's good. And if you are a fan of Robinson Crusoe, I would certainly consider getting it. I think it works a bit easier than the Voyage of the Beagle one did, because that was a bit fiddly to include in the game. But I feel this one is a bit easier to implement. It adds more variety to the base game, and it's still good fun. Just maybe wasn't quite the massive mind-blowing hit I was expecting. Like I say, not bad, but I wouldn't say great either. It's decent enough. If you like Robinson Crusoe, give it a shot. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll get your money's worth out of all the replay value it adds to the base scenarios. But I would certainly say that I think the best thing I've got from this expansion is the way that it changes up the base scenarios and those 2 extra scenarios more so than the campaign. But this could pave the way for future stuff in more times to come. More box expansions like this. I'll be happy for that. You're going to have to find some way to store it all and separate it all. But like I say, more stuff for a great game like Robinson Crusoe is not necessarily a bad thing. So, 6 games. It's hot. The lights are going down very quickly. These things really drain the batteries quite quick. But like I say, 6 games. How many was that actually? There was 1, 2, 3. 3 expansions, 3 games. Pretty even split there. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next Anthology special. And remember, whether you are... Actually, I can't really say any jokes on that because I'll be giving spoilers. Whether you are opposed to spoilers or not, just remember, it's only a game. Try not to overreact, okay? Take care, and I'll see you on the next episode.